More incredible shots coming out of Iran, back in the streets and fighting for a free Iran, chanting death to the dictator and literally taking their lives in their hands every time they go out into the street to protest. Police officers chase protesters with tear gas. They hit them with batons, according to the videos that we've seen coming over on YouTube. Very difficult to verify all the video that's coming out of Tehran right now, as you know. The protests this time were timed to commemorate the 10th anniversary of a deadly student demonstrations that were at Tehran University. While some had thought that the crisis was coming to an end and things were quieting down a bit in the streets of Tehran, our next guest tells us all of this is far from over. Reza Aslan is a contributor for the Daily Beast. He's the author of How to Win a Cosmic War, and he joins me now. Reza, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
In your recent piece that you posted, you talked a lot about this student uprising that happened 10 years ago, which is very fresh in the minds of these protesters right now. And in those protests 10 years ago, students were killed at Tehran University, and there was one student who became sort of the symbol of all of that. I want to show his picture right now. Tell us a little bit about this man and the bloody shirt that he holds over his head.
Well, this young man's name is Ahmed Batebi. This, of course, as you said, occurred 10 years ago at Tehran University. There was a 6-day peaceful protest in the university by the students themselves over the closing of a reformist newspaper called Salam. And on the 6th day, actually very early in the morning, while most of the students were still asleep in their dorms, the security and the police and the Revolutionary Guards broke into the dorm rooms, set fire to dorms, threw some students out the window. There were a lot of shots fired. And the picture that you're seeing right now became sort of an icon of that event. It was splashed on the cover of The Economist. It's Ahmed Batebi showing the T-shirt of a fellow student who was shot by one of the security personnel. And when that photo appeared on the cover of The Economist, the next day the police swept into Ahmed's home, arrested him. He then spent the next 10 years in prison. And then finally he was released temporarily for some medical assistance, and he used that time to escape from Iran. He now lives in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. He lives in Washington, D.C. now. As you pointed out, he was in prison for 10 years in Iran because that picture that we've been showing ended up on the cover of The Economist. You say he was held for 10 years in a cell the size of a bathtub?
Yes, that's how he describes it. He was tortured psychologically and physically. He had to endure actually one mock execution. And the whole time what the authorities were trying to do was get him to say that that wasn't blood on the shirt. In fact, at one point they asked him to sign a confession saying that it was tomato sauce of all things. But Ahmed refused to do so, and now he works for a human rights organization in D.C. But, you know, when I talk to Ahmed, he says something very interesting in that the 10 years that have passed since 1999, the protesters have become much more sophisticated in the way that they challenge the government, and you're seeing that now on the streets. 10 years ago, the students were asking for greater freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Now they've gotten to the point where they understand how to use the mechanism of the regime against it. So what they're trying to do now is, in a sense, shame the regime, to embarrass it in the public realm, in the international community, to sort of say that the problem here is that the regime is not living up to its own standards of morality, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, as you can see on the streets, by the fact that this uprising is far from over, it's really starting to work in some ways.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that we keep this story out there and we keep talking about it and showing the pictures, and it's amazing to look at what that man went through for 10 years, and he was very much the symbol of that uprising, as Neda has become the symbol of this one. Dr. Reza Aslan, I hope you'll join us again as we keep covering this story and we stay on it.